Hi.
Hi, Colin. So good to see you.
Hi, Shanti. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, everybody, for those who's joining us for this live show with the wonderful Shanti. We're going to be talking about, well, as you can see by the title, the art of unknowing. So we're in for a treat. I think we're going to be diving a little bit deep on this matter. Just before we go any further, warm welcome to everybody. Welcome to Menorca Consciousness Group. We're going to be with this is going to be one of many podcast shows, live chats, which I don't know what to call them at the moment. But a little bit about Shanti. Shanti is a beautiful mind. We'll start with that first. And we've known Shanti for some time now. She has visited Egypt, had wonderful experiences on more than one occasion to Egypt with the goddesses over in Egypt and the energy, the magical energy, which is over there. She's got a course coming up later on in the year. What's the title of your course, Shanti?
It's going to be in the fall. It's a 3-month course on the Egyptian mysteries of the divine feminine.
There you go then. That sounds, it's like got a beautiful sound to it, and it's lovely vibration to it. So, just while we're introducing you, a little bit about your background. There you go. Thank you. Mysteries, Deep Field Healing. People can get in touch with you there. Is that correct? That's your website, I believe. It's
that is my website, yes, and also the now
right
mysteries as well, because I fixed that. It's my brand new website.
Brilliant. Okay. Brand new. There you go. So please, everybody, check out the Shanti's website. I'm just going to say a quick hello to Ray and Deborah and Wendy so far. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. Lovely to have you with us. So I think we can. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Ray and Wendy. So I think we can go straight into this, can't we, really? Because we was discussing a theme and a topic of what to do or what to call or title this chat, the art of unknowing. And it's intriguing, I think, as in, what do we mean by unknowing? So,
well, because Colin asked me to be a talking head on a podcast, and I said, Colin, what would I talk about? I don't know anything.
And there you have it. So that's the end of the podcast, because none of us know anything. So thank you for watching. Hi, Lynn. What do we know? Is it about what we know, or aspects what we don't know? Because the journey itself, if we call it a journey, especially the one where we're referring to, generally speaking, is a spiritual journey, or that fascinates me sometimes, because it's like we're just given a title to something we don't fully comprehend, in a way, the spiritual path, the spiritual journey, and aspects what we don't know about. And it's one of those we can probably start with. The classic, the more we think we know, the more we realize how little we know. And I suppose that unknowing is what it is. Whether it's, the healing aspect, the psychic, mediumship, channeling, whatever it is, in this huge space under the umbrella of spiritual matters, is, do we ever really know? Because I've got to confess, I love knowing. I love the concept of knowing and the energy and vibration of knowing. But I'm hoping to come to that further down the line. So, Ray, Socrates already, what was that? Socrates knew already that he didn't know. There we go then. So your thoughts then. Thank you, Ray.
So I think unknowing has a lot to do with being empty. It's a lot to do with emptiness, but being in the vibration of emptiness. which I feel, Colin, you're very familiar with because you teach a workshop on letting go.
It's strange, isn't it? Because in emptiness, you've tried to catch me out with the first one, haven't you? In emptiness, the mind is all knowing. And yet, if it's empty, how can it be all knowing if it's empty? So then maybe we'll go beyond the knowing, which is merely being and being present. And in any given moment, we can say there's a vast unknowing. And yet when our consciousness attunes to a certain frequency, at a certain point, then there's a profound knowing. If that makes sense. Don't know. But emptiness itself tells us that there's a vast unknowing, like you say. So how much do we know? What do we know about our subjects? You know, science, etc. Politics, which seems to be the theme of the day. Spirituality, what do we really know? What can we actually say? I know this. And I think the only time we can do that is in that knowing energy. Over when we step out of that, then it's all question marks. We're searching, we're seeking out to find the mysteries of existence, right? Reality. Rare. We cannot know what is going on. We can only experience it. I think we're going to get hit by a few things tonight, Shanti.
It's a vast topic. It's a vast topic. I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, there's a common saying in spiritual circles that the mind that created the problem is not the mind that's going to be able to solve it. And so that's where the idea of emptying out, just emptying out, letting go of all preconceptions, letting go of everything you think you know, in order to allow new information, in order to allow new answers to come in. And that's important not only when you're meditating, but also when you're in conversation with others. So when we talk about politics or anything like that, how can you really be in conversation with another being if you already know? If you already know everything that you have to say? You could come to a conversation. It's difficult. It's difficult to be in relationship if you're coming so full of things that you want to transmit and not receptive to things that you might learn or receive.
Yeah. Yeah, Debbie, I think we only know what we know until Spirit gives us more to get our head around, and then we realize just how little we actually know. Oh, thank you, Deborah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you touched on a little bit at the start of this conversation, which was the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The more you learn,
correct,
the more where you become if you're ignorant.
Yeah, I like what you've just said regarding making a reference to meditation, bringing meditation into it as well, and moving on. Or I know you didn't say these words, but it's as if we have a vibration of truth or an understanding within our periphery of awareness, where whether we believe we know that truth for what we're perceiving as the ultimate truth, behind that, the undercurrents behind it tells us we can't ever fall into that trap because our frequency of awareness is constantly changing. So therefore the truth, what we knew 10 minutes ago or yesterday or last year, and again, if we do the letting go process, we know we're dissolving the old, and the old is of certain vibrations. So new vibrations abound and they resonate a new truth, so to speak. And of course, meditating, when we're meditating, we are generating a certain energy and going into an altered state, to a point, altered state of awareness. And we're having realizations of more profound truths. So that then dismisses the old form of knowing, if that makes sense. Any thoughts?
It makes perfect sense to me. You know, I come from a science background, as you know, so you knew I was inevitably going to bring this up. And I read something really interesting the other day, which was that science, the very foundation of science, is based on an admission of our ignorance. We start by saying we don't know. And then we come up with a hypothesis. We say, maybe this is true. And then we test it. We design an experiment to test it. We design an experiment, hopefully in a controlled environment with parameters that can be held fixed, so we can only test the piece that we want to test. So it's a very rigorous process. And then after we've done the experiment, we put it out in the world for peer review. We say, okay, all you other smart minds, you go look at what I've done and tell me what I'm doing wrong here. Did I miss something? And then they come in and they say, well, this logic over here doesn't quite make sense, or there was an assumption built into your argument that you didn't highlight, or I wasn't able to reproduce your results. And then it's back to the drawing board, and it's a long slog. It's a long process of evolving our knowledge and our understanding. By putting it out in the world, testing it against other people's ideas, and evolving it until we're at a point where we can aim a rocket at Mars and it lands at exactly the location that we want it to land.
Yeah. Beautiful point. Just going to say hello to Patrick and Trish. Hi, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. And Trish. Hi, Trish. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Chanda. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. We're getting stuck into the art of unknowing. I don't know why the title itself kind of tickles me. So, Chanda, today my mother told me that. Oops, we'll hold that one. Today my mother told me that my father cried that she aborted me when she was pregnant with myself. I knew it from sessions, but deeply hoped that this was not true. But now I know. Did my life changing now? Yeah, thank you, Chanda. I don't know about your thoughts on this. Shanti, have you got any thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I come from a place of I don't know anything, so I think it has to go to you, Colin. So, Chanda, my answer to you, no.
I will just, Did my life change now? Yes. Because two frequencies have happened, even though you had the knowing, Chanda, within you. You've now had it confirmed. So there's an extra frequency involved in that whole experience. Therefore, the whole experience will change. So you'll now have a new vibration or new sense or perception of truth. Because another factor which previously to this news you was unaware of, and that set the experience in a certain realm of energy. Now that energy is altered, so there's a new truth to Chanda, so to speak. Thank you so much, Chanda. I'd like to go back to this science.
And I would add to that.
Yeah, please do.
It doesn't, your entire life doesn't have to change. How much your life changes is up to you.
So true. So true. And I agree, obviously. So just if we can, just go back to the science area, the aspect, facet of science, what you referred to. As fascinating as it is, and that area where science, the whole aspect of science is questioning mind, question everything, until it can be, I suppose, confirmed by peer pressure and, you know, like you're saying, everything. What fascinates me about that is all that works according to the limitations of awareness and consciousness of the people involved in it, if that makes sense. Because the individual
expanded consciousness of all the people involved in it. I think they're bringing all of them to the table. So all of their knowings are coming to the table. They're coming into play. It's a collective exercise. Yeah.
And do you think that, therefore, at that moment when they conclude a certain result, that it's limited by that group of minds and their unknowing of a more expansive perception about that subject.
Absolutely. The assumption of science is that at every stage we are ignorant. The assumption is that we're constantly evolving, we're constantly adding to the canon of knowledge. And all of that knowledge has been thoroughly examined and tested, and it is always up for re-examination and retesting. And that is a continuous process that's always happening. I think one of the things that you're getting at is, can there be a huge paradigm shift in science? And yes, there absolutely can. And there has been. So at the turn of the century, at the turn of the 20th century, right? 1905, when Einstein came up with the special theory of relativity, that was a huge turning point. Colin, we lost you. Where are you? Where did you go? Guess I'll just keep talking until Colin returns from the wormhole he just disappeared into. So that was a big turning point in science. It was a paradigm shift because special relativity said that time itself was not fixed. Time could change depending on how fast you were moving, which was a crazy idea. Nobody had ever come up with, nobody had thought to question something like time as being a coordinate that could be expanded or contracted. And part of special relativity was also talking about physical space. So physical space also became something that could be expanded or contracted. These ideas were not there at all before the 20th century. So huge paradigm shift. And there were many others during the 20th century. And I'm sure there will be many more.
Perfect. I caught most of that. Sorry, I have to keep my hands to myself. I ejected myself from the studio.
And now you're on the left side. You're on the right side of me when before you were on the left side.
So I love this aspect of the science. Sorry, everybody. In so much that it's ever expanding, just like everything else. We put it to the spiritual path, the spiritual journey. The mind is ever expanding. Our field of energy is constantly opening up and expanding. The deeper we go, if we take a route, that is, i.e. deep, but the more we investigate our awareness and consciousness, those aspects continuously expand and broaden. And again, we're almost bordering on this line now, aren't we, where we're talking about new revolutions of truth as we move through existence. And when we look at the science aspect and what's been created, which is absolutely phenomenal, as we know, because we sit here holding this conversation due to beautiful minds coming together and creating this aspect where we've got the capability of communicating, even seeing each other. Technology is phenomenal. Science, which means science is phenomenal. I've always believed science and spirit are one and the same. I have to put that out there. Always. It was clear to me, and I don't know how, but it was very clear to me at the very beginning that when we're looking at energies and wavelengths, then where spiritual matters, what so-called spiritual matters are concerned, then they match science. They fit in science, in whichever form and state they do. So, keeping with the theme of science for a moment, if we may, this concept of the paradigms constantly changing and the variations really informs us that what we think we've got at this moment to the standard or capacity or capability we've got it also reflects to us that there is so much more what is unknown. There's so much more waiting for us to know. So we're still kind of in this realm of saying, okay, yes, we know how a computer works, etc., but we have an unknowing aspect because there's so much more we don't know. So it's almost as if we're constantly in realm of unknowing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we're constantly in a realm of unknowing.
What do you think?
And learning. So there's a meme on the internet these days. A lot of motivational speakers will talk about always be learning, and I think it's a beautiful idea. Always be learning. There's a quote I wanted to bring forward. This was Maya Angelou, and she says that do the best you can until you know better, and then do better. And it really applies to every aspect of life, right? So we're beings who are here to learn. That's what we're here to do. That's primarily one of our, well, we're here to do two things: learn and explore, and serve. But a big part of it is we're here because, I mean, I think everybody here sort of buys into the whole starseed thing on this call, so I think I have to explain that. But we came here from the stars because we wanted to experience this. We were curious about all of this. So if we forget, if we become too focused on service, which is a beautiful thing, and we're absolutely here to serve and to teach, but if we become too focused on that, we're also neglecting a very important other reason that we came, which was to experience and to learn.
Interesting. You see, I have a theory on this aspect of learning, which I wasn't expecting to come to it so soon, but we may as well throw it in now because it's ripened. And that is, my understanding of it is learning is an absence of knowing. So when we have a mind of learning, i.e. seeking, searching, it means we're lacking a knowing. And because we know there is a knowing, because we know knowing it exists within each of us, maybe the question is more, and we're talking duality at the moment, but maybe the question is more, how close are we getting to knowing? And when will knowing be a part of us throughout our existence? Will we reach a vibration of awareness where we will have a constant awareness of knowing about anything and everything as and when it may ripen into our awareness? Or will it be intermittent and there'll be parts where we're learning aspects and then parts where we're knowing aspects? So
I think you nailed it. I think it has entirely to do with what is ripening in the moment, as you said. That we are constantly expanding our knowing according to whatever is coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think why when I get amazing results healing, but okay, we'll jump back to that in a moment. Thank you, Wendy. Lovely to have you with us. We'll come back to that. I think there's a very relevant and important aspect, this whole area of unknowing and knowing. In the emptiness, as you brought up earlier, in the emptiness of awareness, then there are no thoughts, just the awareness of emptiness itself, which we can debate whether that's a thought or not. And yet, when we begin thinking from one angle or area of thinking, we start questioning. And that in that questioning is the learning taking place. There's a learning aspect. And yet from the other side, in that emptiness, we can never know it. When a thought occurs, when it matches, without getting too technical, too deep, but when the knowing matches pure intuition, and we have the feeling simultaneously to the thought, and then the knowing is present in that particular moment. What's fascinating me is, and again, the question is maybe it's a question part statement. It appears that we as a species is getting very close to the frequencies of knowing on a more regular basis, if that makes sense. Because we know we've all had a knowing at some point of our life, you know, we know those words. I don't know how I know it, but I know this. And it's almost as if it's unquestionable. In fact, many occasions it is unquestionable because it's knowing, so there is no question to it. And we've all, I believe, most, if not all people, have experienced that knowing. And yet when you remove the knowing, then we're left with the title of what we've got tonight, the unknowing of all those aspects what we're not aware of in any given moment. And I find that particularly very relevant to the spiritual path for all of us, for the species itself. Simply because it doesn't matter what vast wealth of knowledge we collect and gather, there's still this infinite.
You broke up with the last word.
Space. And the second aspect, why? Yeah, go on, sorry.
In and out. Your connection is going in and out. And you're frozen now.
Sorry, Shanti.
Is anyone else experiencing this? Anyone on live? Are you experiencing? Because I can't hear Colin anymore.
How's that? Sorry.
Your picture's frozen, but I could hear the words. Okay, now you're moving.
So it looks like we have an issue with the live stream. I thought everything was okay. I've had no signals to say the one. No. It's for those who can still hear me. I'll just.
You're a little glitchy again.
Sorry about this. We haven't got a clue what's going on, guys. So.
Well, Debbie says she can see you now. So.
Right. Back with us. Was that both of us or just me? Because you disappeared from mine at one point.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, we'll keep going. Please bear with us, guys.
You're back now and everything's good.
Yeah.
But we missed some of what you said, so you'll have to repeat yourself.
Oh, are you kidding me? Right then, retrograde. We was looking at that area of knowing and the unknowing, as in, we know there's a vastness of unknowing in the emptiness of all things. Nice to have you with us, Francis. So then, but once we've got this, we seem to be very close to, and of course, the more people, well, the more one self, the more a mind, an individual, lets go of the old frequencies and the old baggage, so to speak. It's not a nice word, but that's what it is. A clear space starts opening up, and in that clarity, there's more chance of the mind abiding in the sense of knowing. And I find that absolutely so exciting because it's not just one individual what's going towards that, the species. We're all kind of be heading in that direction, but it's connected to the spiritual path again. It's almost like everything comes back to the spiritual path. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts?
Yeah, what I was thinking about is that what you're talking about, this is what I call the clear fountain, because one of my teachers, Samuel Sagan, he wrote a wonderful book very similar to your book, where he has a whole, it's called The Language to Map Consciousness. So he gives names to all of these things. And it's really helpful to have a framework. When you can name things, then you can have a conversation. Then you can talk about specific things without getting lost in different definitions. Because if you have one definition and I have another, then we're just having a conversation that's not actually going anywhere. But if we can name the thing and say, oh, Colin, you're talking about the clear fountain. And I said, I know what you're talking about. And I said, yes, absolutely. The clear fountain is very important to connect to. And the clear fountain to me is just this vertical connection straight up to source through the crown. And it has, and you know, when I'm connected to it, I feel like I am in this space of omniscient, omnipotent knowingness. Right? And that's the space of connectedness and unconditional love, which a lot of us refer to as source consciousness. But the clear fountain is a step down from that. So the clear fountain is where you're accessing the insight that you need in the moment, the insight to the question that you have in the moment for something that you are seeking or trying to understand or make a decision around. So that's the clear fountain. It's sort of the lower part of that connection all the way up to source. And what I would say is there is a translation step. So although all that information, all that knowledge is available, it's only accessible to the extent that we can translate it into our human minds and our human frameworks. And so if we don't have a framework to plug it into, we won't be able to be specific enough for it to be useful. So its usefulness is limited by our own frameworks, our own language. And so that's the work that we're doing. That's the work we're doing in science. And that's the work that people like you and Samuel are doing with creating language around consciousness, concepts, so that we can have frameworks we can plug things into in order to name them and then to be able to talk about them and in order to unpack the downloads, so to speak. Because we receive the frequencies, but then can we translate it into words? Can we talk about it? Can we put it to use?
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'd like to just hold on to this one for a moment, and then I'm still going to come back to the question from earlier, but the download aspect, what's referred to as download, the channeling aspect, and in that stream of consciousness, it's almost the brain has got to do its translating, so to speak, or it's understood. Sorry, it's understood that the brain has got to do its translating. Yet, I think the brain is completely separate as far as cognizing information, what's downloaded. So it's translated because I believe on those higher frequencies, what we refer to as the higher frequencies or pure frequencies, etc., finer aspects. Information is so simple. It's got this cosmic simplicity, we can say. And yet, exactly as you've described, when it hits our mind on this vibration or these frequencies of our, for want of a better term, earthly mind or earthly consciousness, and we can say into this 3D awareness, it's been diluted. And yet, in order for us to comprehend it, and yet as we unravel it, the expansion still continues. So the download, so to speak, even though they may be diluted, we're still benefiting by those frequencies, what we've got. And again, that takes us to a step of from the unknowing into a knowing again. It's almost as if we're dancing with the unknowing and knowing at this moment. I just want to, if I can, because I don't want to be rude to, I think it's Wendy.
Yeah, I want to answer. Move on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm gonna, yeah.
It's directly relevant, Wendy. Thank you for your question. It's completely relevant to what we're talking about here, which is why do I get amazing results when I heal others, but why can't I heal myself? And that's exactly the point. You can heal yourself the same as you can heal others. But when it comes to others, we are more in the space of unknowing, because we don't know what's going on with them. We don't have an opinion. Our mind is not already full of all the things we think we know. And then we can be a clear channel for spirit to come through and do its thing. But when it comes to ourselves, we are the mind that is blocking our own access to that same spirit, that same channel. And so when we're full of ourselves, our own thoughts, our own ideas, our own ideas about who we are and what we're here to do and why things must be this way versus that way, that's when we run into limitations in how much we can access for ourselves. But we can always access. I mean, we're definitely always receiving the downloads. At least I know I am. I receive them. But the unpacking part, that's where the mind gets into the way. That's where the translation step gets into the way.
I would agree with you, most definitely. I think the issue, that last bit, but I cannot hear myself. We know we can safely say that as we heal others, we receive the healing. When we're talking about healing and that word heal, that opens up so much, such a vast area. But in this context, we're still receiving that light. We're still receiving that energy as it goes through us to somebody else. And the reason why I definitely agree with what Shanti's just said is because we get in our own way. Oh, there you go, Francis. Our mind steps in, and for different reasons as well. Believe it or not, sometimes we prevent ourselves from being healed because we don't think we deserve it, or we don't have the credit to receive that healing, even when we do it ourselves. So what we've got to do is remove those obstacles of our own mind, and treat ourselves as we would, mindset wise, as we would be treating somebody else. So if we can send healing to somebody, then we just simply reverse it and send it back to ourselves. Funny enough, without opening it up too much, that's what I have recently been experiencing. I've experienced it previously, but on this specific occasion, that's what was needed. I could say this too, because I think we should take another step here. Regarding healing ourselves, clearly we are spiritual guides, and clearly some of those guides are what I refer to as healing guides. So how can we get close to our healing guides in order to receive gracefully healing which they may wish to convey to us? And as everything, the answer is simple. We need to be open to it. We need to open our field of energy. Now, generally speaking, when we are ill, we go in shutdown mode. Everything kind of comes in and condenses because our physical body is fighting it. So somehow, during those occasions, we have to take moments, and as if we was going to meditate for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and we have to open up our energies. We have to open our field of energies, because just like opening the door, if somebody stood the other side, same as mediumship, we have to allow them in. So by closing down, we're preventing our own healing taking place, if that makes sense. So we've got to apply the same system, and go from that point. If you think you can, you're right. If you think you can, you're right. Cancel self-doubt. Exactly, Nick. Yeah. It's about removing our own. No, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to save that one for later. So thank you so much. Any thoughts on what Nick has just said, Shanti?
I think he's absolutely correct. It really comes down to our own self-limitations, what we believe about ourselves. However, if you're like me and your mind is very powerful, which mine is, It's very strong. I'm a strong-minded person because that's what happens when you get a lot of education. So you have a lot of, your mind is very full of many things, and it definitely gets in the way. And I notice that I do a lot of my processing. So when I get spiritual downloads of frequencies, which, as you said, is pure, the frequencies are pure on a certain level, then I do most of my processing through the body. So a lot of it just bypasses the mind, goes straight into the body. And then, this is going to sound bad, but I purge it. I barf it up, basically. So there's a lot of people who are familiar with ayahuasca, for example, would be familiar with this concept that we can process a lot of the gunk that we're holding onto in our energetic system. We can process it through our physical system. It can be processed physically, and it can be released physically without ever having to deal with the mind at all. We can just throw out that garbage. And then once the garbage is gone, the mind is clear, and boom, all the insights rush in. And this is part of the experience a lot of people have when they take ayahuasca or such emetics, right? Emetic is something that makes you throw up. And in my case, I go through this practically on a monthly basis because I get regular migraines, and they will knock me out for 3 days at a time, and I can't eat anything, and I'm just purging and purging. But once I'm done with that process, I am so clear. Spiritually speaking, I am clean and clear and just squeaky. Everything is just, and whatever was bothering me before, it's just the answers are clear as day, and it doesn't even make sense that it was bothering me anymore. It's so completely dealt with.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. So that's an aspect of clearing and cleansing process going on then. So if we may, I'd like to come back to this unknowing theme and kind of see if we can open it up more and put it in relation to our journey and the moments and times we believe, or we get to a point, we're trying to understand something. I'm sorry, I need to cough. At the moment. So we get to the point of where we think we understand an aspect of our spiritual path. And for those who are watching, we can frame it in the area of spiritual healing, mediumship, channeling, trance, the higher self, the altered states, and understanding all those areas. And it's like this constant unraveling, unfolding, okay? One of the aspects which I really find curious, fascinating too, is the aspect of the ego, where the ego, the I, the identity, the me, etc., comes into play, and how often we can notice that the mind, if it's not careful and if it's not maintaining that sense of humility and humbleness, can fall into that delusion or that trap of, I know what I am talking about. And in that, where's the lack of unknowing? And this is why, again, I love this title, The Art of Unknowing, because I believe the art of unknowing acts as a stabilizer and can keep the mind in an area of humility and humbleness, if that makes sense. Because you take that away and you're taking the brakes off the ego, which will then go, I've gathered all this knowledge, I've gathered all this information, I know such and such. Even in the very early stages, because the ego wants to kind of project forward. So it fascinates me regarding the unknowing and ego and its relation in the whole kind of peripheral sphere. Any thoughts on that, Shanti?
So I love that you have Socrates in, because That's a very famous quote from Socrates, right? I am wise because I know that I do not know. But I want to bring in another very wise man from a lot longer ago than Socrates. And I know you love the Egyptians, and of course they have to come in because you and I are
Of course. Yes.
I want to
Bring them
talk
in.
about, and I'm going to be paraphrasing this, and in any case, we can't exactly translate no matter what because it's such an ancient language. But there was a wise man in ancient Egypt called Ptah, and he wrote many of these papyri that have come down to us. They were taught over many hundreds of years, and they were constantly copied. So many copies existed, and because so many copies exist, we can put it all together into one book. So they were called the maxims of Ptah. And one of the maxims was, do not be too arrogant in your knowledge. He said, no matter what you are good at, if you are a craftsman, you can always improve your craft. If you are, whatever it is that you can always improve your knowledge. So do not be arrogant in your knowledge.
Totally. There's lessons in there. There's when we're looking at lessons, we've got an astounding position to be surrounded by a vast multitude of facets of truth reflecting back to us, which each acts as a guide to us. So we have and I'm going to bring in, I don't know why I'm going to bring this in at this moment, I had no intention to, but we'll bring it in again, the aspect of the ego. Boom. And then immediately there's a facet shining, a truth, a pure truth, what tells us and guides the mind through this, what's referred to as the ego, and so many aspects about it. And what fascinates me is each one walks the path and catches the glimpses of those facets of truth as and when it's correct for that mind. And ultimately, it's kind of saying to us, it's not so much the truth is always changing. Our perception and therefore our understanding of truth is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Francis. Yeah, correct. Totally, Francis.
I want to add,
the Unknowing.
This discourse is so important when it comes to the times we live in, because so much of this is going on in the online realms, right? Where people are just so sure of what they know, whether they're on this side of the political spectrum or this other side, that it's very difficult for them to communicate. And something that I've noticed when I've been in those kinds of conversations, so it's one thing to say, come into a conversation with a state of unknowingness, with a state of willingness to listen. But what gets in the way, Colin, just like you're saying, what gets in the way is our own unhealed selves. Yeah. That's what gets in the way. And so it's not always as simple as just take the elevator up and be in the space of unknowing, because oftentimes we're going to get, the elevator is going to crash down to the bottom because we're going to get triggered by something that's unhealed inside ourselves. And the important thing, I think the power of these times that we live in, is to expose ourselves to those triggering ideas and then go deep, go another layer deeper, go even deeper, go down all the way to the bottom layer and find out what is it at the bottom of all of that pile that is being triggered. So I had a conversation recently with a friend, and there was some political idea that we were discussing. And we seemed to be agreeing, and then something triggered, right? Something triggered, and I was just, wait, what? Why does this bother you so much? I mean, it's just a fact of life. It's how the world is. And we just unpacked and unpacked and unpacked. And at the bottom of it was, why is it that some people are born with more opportunities than others? And it's just, just look around you. I mean, some people are born into rich families, some people are born into poor. Are you telling me that your solution to global poverty is this political thing? And it was just, okay, no, that's just absurd. That's not what I'm saying. And you're right. Like, I'm just upset that global poverty exists. I'm just upset that it exists, and that's it. And so sometimes we're rightfully upset about something, but we translate that into a political point of view that actually doesn't necessarily connect. It doesn't actually necessarily connect. And one of the things we have to learn as a species is to just be able to be okay with the fact that this world is not perfect. In fact, there's a lot of suffering in this world, and it exists. Suffering exists. And yes, we can be activists and we can try to do something about it. And yes, we also have to grieve. We have to take the time to feel and grieve it. We can't just always be angry. We also have to allow ourselves to be sad about it. And we don't always have to try to fix it, because it's not necessarily our responsibility to fix it in a material sense, because there are other ways to fix it as well. And that's the kind of work we do as spiritualists, is we bring in from a particular point of view, according to the gifts that we have, in order to make the world a better place, to make it a gentler place and a softer place. And that's the work we're all doing, every single one of us, whether you're an activist or whether you're a healer, every single one of us is contributing to this.
Yeah. Some all relevant to, especially in today's environment. Just picking up on, because obviously there were several things in there, but picking up on one of them and trying to open it up slightly. This constant business of trying to understand the world as it is and where everybody else is in the world, including ourselves. And we know if we, in an unselfish way, but responsible way, put some time to our own mind, we then can, step into that awareness and hopefully receive clarity, some degree of clarity at least, which then gives us some degree of understanding about global affairs, so to speak, without limitation to anything. When we look at the political aspect and where the mind gets involved politically, the first thing, it's almost like a hurdle by itself. The first hurdle is to recognize that the two polarity, the two sides, this polarization, what's going on, is only the surface, almost meaningless, because the truth goes way beyond polarity, and we see this clash, etc. Without opening up too much, we see the intense clash, born out of, and I'm probably going to say it, but both sides not stepping back individually who are involved in it and going within their own space to try and get clarity over the situation and circumstance, what they are so passionate about. The failure to recognize and respect somebody else and somebody else's opinion is in there. But again, without opening it up, it's almost like it's a hurdle in the beginning. It's like, okay, I believe in this, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings in conjunction and connection to such and such. Somebody else has got their feelings which are opposite to mine. And this mind is what it is, that mind is what it is, and the acceptance is the most important thing, without the infringement upon anybody. And then the aspect about ascending and living in that space, if you like, the reason we can't live in it is I totally agree. It's because there's aspects unhealed. So that can prevent the constant ascension of a mind. At some point, it will be drawn back down if we're liking it in that way. At some point, doesn't matter how high somebody may cruise in their awareness, if there is a grain of turbulence, which we may refer to as hate, pain, issues, whatever word we give it, that's going to prevent that mind from continuously flying high at all times. It's going to eventually ground that mind and present itself. So that mind says, okay, if this is present, I've got to clear this now. Okay, and then we go through the healing process and transformation process, because I think transformation and healing are exceptionally connected, very deeply and closely connected, purely based on the fact that I believe we are transformers, which you touched upon earlier, where we transform the energy as it's coming in. So what we're looking at the moment is, and again, that unknowing aspect of truths and energies which have yet to ripen within us. And all we can do is accept that when something ripens, it ripens and we have to deal with it. And our unknowing is less. And the following moment, there's so many other aspects we don't have the knowing about. And yet we know if we transform energy within ourselves, again, we'll have less unknowing and more knowing. So it's this constant kind of, we can say cycle, but I'm cautious to even say cycle. I think it's all just about the moment. It's not even about the moment, it's even deeper than that. And we say about being present or being in the moment, in the here and now, or the now, whichever one, whatever title. We're brilliant at giving things titles, aren't we? And they're so beneficial and helpful to us because it gets us like signpost on like spaghetti junction. There's all these roads leading in all these directions, and if there's no signpost, it's like we're going to go off somewhere. But so the titles we give to things, I do believe help and give us the ability to navigate to a certain point. Until we get to that core, if you like, of the expanse of our awareness, the ascension of our awareness, and start abiding in that knowing energy as much as we possibly can. Because I think in the knowing energy, and this answers probably what's going to an aspect of what's going on in the world. One of the reasons why so many views and opinions differ, and therefore are resulting in clashes and conflict and disagreements, is the unknowing. As a direct result of unknowing. Because one side will go, well, I know this, but there's so much they don't know. The other side will go, I know this, but there's so much that side doesn't know. So the unknowing, in a way, is not benefiting this species at the moment. And we can see clearly that aspect playing out in front of us. So
yeah, there's something very important that we haven't touched upon yet, and I think this was the perfect segue into it. The reality is that there is so much we don't know. There is so much we don't know. There's like a vast amount of things we don't know. And 3,000 years ago, we knew even less. Or, caveman era, whenever that was. So you can imagine the caveman coming out and seeing lightning striking somewhere. And it frightens the little children, because that's what we are. We are little children in the spiritual world. There's so much we don't know. And so many things can frighten us. And so the anxious mind has to create a story in order to comfort ourselves with knowledge. And that's one of the ways we comfort ourselves, is by believing we know, believing we understand. And so we have always been storytellers and meaning makers. This is just what we do as a human species. And it's valuable and important, because if we didn't do that, we would be a mess of anxiety, and we wouldn't be functional. We wouldn't be able to take care of ourselves. So we have to find a balance between a certain amount of knowingness in our unknowingness in order to function and just get on with whatever we have to get on with. But as we become more adult and less of that frightened child, as we are able to have more of this courage that you get by being connected to spiritual consciousness, when we develop that very deep aspect of faith and courage, and the courage that comes with it, then we are able to be more in the unknowingness and be able to just confidently accept the fact that, be an acceptance of the fact that there is so much we don't know, that the universe is a vast and mysterious place. And this is why one of the things that I have on my website, and I keep repeating in my courses, is let the mysteries remain mysterious. Let the mysteries remain mysterious. Because the more we try to put a framework on it, or understanding, or say we know exactly what the thing is, we lose the thing. We lose the thing. When we try to pin it down, we lose the thing. So to some extent, we have to become comfortable in not knowing.
Yeah. Acceptance. Accept the things we don't know, and yet seek to find the knowing of them. Let's have a look, because we've covered. Science is a belief system. I'll let you read this if you wish to, Nick. Yeah, Shanti. Thanks, Nick.
I would say that believing this about science is a belief system too. This seems like a lot of assumptions to me. Like, what is this rarity and spontaneity? I mean, I think science comes through in a flash of insight all the time. So I don't know what scientists you're talking to. And prejudiced one, yeah, humans are prejudiced. Scientists are humans. I'm sure there are a couple of prejudiced ones.
Science is a belief system. Oh, sorry. I'd just like to read that. I can see it there. Science is a belief system too, and quite a prejudiced one. It values measurement and replicability, but has difficulty with rarity and spontaneity. Thanks for your thoughts, Nick. Very interesting. You see, everything's in the mix at the moment, isn't it? Everything's getting questioned. Absolutely. I think if it's okay, because I had a list of 5 aspects, and we've actually covered 4 of them without even consciously going for it, which leaves us 1, which I'd like to maybe finish on this one and pick up again in the future on another chat, if that's okay. And that's timelines.
Well, that's nothing about.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to drop a little carrot here, I think, hopefully. So timelines. Any thoughts on timelines? I don't know. But briefly, let's do it briefly.
Is this for the audience?
Yes, we're still live.
We're waiting for Colin dropped a carrot, and we're waiting for your replies.
Anybody want to ask about timelines?
Colin, how about you?
I've got a few.
Oh, here we go.
What is a timeline? I know there's one typing. We definitely know less about timelines than we know about them. Oh, thank you, Francis. Ria, It's the scientists, was it? It's the scientists who follow a rigid belief system. It's the scientists who follow a rigid belief system.
Okay, you know what?
Development of science.
I'm going to talk about
Sorry?
a topic. I'm going to talk about a topic that was on my list. That is not timelines, because I don't know what you mean by that exactly.
Right.
This is a topic on my list.
Yeah.
This is very interesting to me. So physics is the only science I can speak for here. So please do not ask me about, people like COVID vaccination type issues. This is not my area.
No.
But physics, first of all, I think a lot of people who go into physics, I'm quite convinced that you have to have a sense of the mystical, or you wouldn't study physics, you would study engineering. So if you are somebody who's going for a PhD in physics, you probably are very interested in the nature of reality, the fundamental fabric of reality. So something that happened to physics in the last century was that physics accidentally bumped up against consciousness. And nobody was trying to do that. It's just what happened. And there was this concept of the wave function, meaning all possible, we've got timelines. All possible timelines are available. All possibilities exist in the wave function. That's what it means for something to be a wave and a particle. When it's a particle, the wave function has collapsed, and that one possibility has now been realized. While it's still a wave, all possibilities are contained, aka all timelines are contained in that uncollapsed wave function. And what we discovered was that the act of observation is what collapses the wave function. So all possibilities can be contained in all these different particles interacting with each other. And while they're interacting with each other, with all possibilities contained in them, they are in what we call an entangled state. And that entangled state can continue indefinitely until an observer is introduced. And I remember a long time ago, I asked one of my professors, because I said, okay, we keep talking about this thing called an observer. But what do we mean by observer? What is an observer exactly? Is it a machine? Is it a human? Like what? Like until a machine measures it? What are we talking about here? And so I asked him point blank in private in his office. I said, are we talking about consciousness? And he laughed and laughed and laughed. And he says, of course we are. Of course we are. But because physics at this moment in time, we don't know. We don't know how to go from what we do know to what we don't know. We don't know how to deal with that aspect of reality. It's just a pause, it kind of just exists there until the next paradigm shift, until somebody comes in and tells us how we can mathematically deal with this, because everything in physics is mathematical. And until we know how to mathematically deal with this, consciousness remains the realm of metaphysics, and everything else is over here on the physics side. It's not because physicists are saying we don't want it. Physicists are just saying we don't know how to do the math. We don't know how to translate this any further into the math. This is as far as we've gotten. It's a very tantalizing, very important, very exciting paradigm shift that will happen eventually. It will happen. It just hasn't happened yet. And of course, we're all waiting for it. We're waiting with bated breath for it.
Beautiful.
And meanwhile, if you're like me and you got a PhD in physics trying to get answers to these questions, you just throw up your hands in despair and you go study yoga instead and start meditating and hanging out with Colin, because that's where you can continue to push forward, because science is, physics itself is kind of at a point where, maybe I should have stayed with it and I could have tried, but I'm not that smart. I figured out I'm not that smart. I went as far as I could.
So thank you so much. This is okay. Let's have a look though. So we've got Nick. Nick was the first one. Thanks, Nick, very much. It's also a problem of scale, according to Nick. Any thoughts on that, Shanti?
I don't know what Nick is talking about. He has to be more specific.
Exactly. Yeah. If you open that up, Nick, we might be able to come back on it. And I don't want to assume. I'm always very cautious about assuming or even attempting to make a comment where it's an assumption.
Oh, you know,
Why not? We might as well.
I have a story to share. I have a story to share about timelines. This is fun. This came up the other day, and I just remembered it's so relevant. A long time ago, when I was very young, I think 13, I had a dream, and it was a precognitive dream, like it was a dream about the future.
Yeah.
But it was a very boring dream. You know, it wasn't a dream that I knew was about the future. It was just a very boring dream. And at that time in my life, I was having these adventure dreams. And I had a friend who would always ask me about my adventure dreams because she loved hearing about them. And so on this occasion, she says, "Did you have a fun dream?" And I said, "No, it was so boring. We were just with my family. We were at this restaurant, and, you know, there were everybody was there. My uncle was here, my aunt was here. And then there was this other woman who's not part of the family, but I don't know what she was doing there. But anyway, very boring. We were just sitting at a restaurant. And then my mother started having a random conversation with my aunt about blah, blah, right? And forgot all about it. About a year or so later, my uncle married that woman. And we were all at a restaurant, the whole family, including her. And I didn't recognize it until they cleared the tables. Some people left. And then suddenly I realized I recognized this configuration. Everybody's seated where they were in my dream. I recognize this. And I was just, okay, I know exactly what my mother's about to start talking about right now. So I wanted to tell my mother, "You're about to start talking to her about such and such." And I kept trying to interrupt, and my mother would not pay any attention to me. And then my uncle was sitting next to me. She's like, "What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "I know what she's going to say." And he just rolls his eyes and turns back to his wife because he's just, I don't know what's wrong with her. And so my mother said all the sentences that I remembered her saying in my dream. She said all of them exactly as I was about to predict she was going to say them. And then she looks at me and she says, "What is wrong with you?" And I was just like 13 and slumped in my seat, like, I was going to tell you what you were going to say.
Yeah. Classic, isn't it? What is wrong with you?
Yes, and so I have to tell you that was the moment. That was the reason that I ultimately studied physics, because it drove me crazy. I said, if I could see the future in that much detail, to that precision, what does that mean about causality? What does that say about cause and effect? And if cause and effect isn't true, then that means our fundamental understanding of reality isn't true. And if I could see the future and I couldn't change it, I tried to change it and I couldn't change it. My mother said every word before she stopped to look at me. If I couldn't change it, what does that say about our understanding of anything, about fate and free will? Is everything written? Is it written? And so I studied physics. I devoured all the knowledge. I read about quantum mechanics. I read about all the wave functions and all the timelines contained in them. And I went all the way up into grad school and took every class I could take. I took general relativity 1 and 2. I took quantum mechanics 1 and 2. I took particle physics. I took all the classes because I was still looking for that answer to that same question from when I was 13 years old. And I remember sitting in general relativity class and looking at diagrams of wormholes and timelines. It's called a time cone. So there would be diagrams of the time cone and talking about wormholes. And I thought, well, what if, and this is just pure speculation, right? This is my imagination just going, well, what if space-time curves? What if it just curves in on itself sometimes? And then there's a point at which this period over here just connects to this period over here, and that's when we get the information. And at that particular point, the wave function is collapsed, but everywhere else it isn't. So that event needs to happen, but everything else is still fuzzy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I left it. It's kind of where I left it, and I left grad school and went on to other things. That's kind of where I left my unknowingness.
And we're going to finish on this note, because I think it's perfect to finish right there. And we're just read these last comments out. Thank you, guys. Francis, forgive the pun, but for the moment, it's just an observation. Thank you, Francis. Nick, subatomic, he comes on. Okay, subatomic to macro universal. Size seems to involve different roles. I would say definitely. In lots of different ways. Observing light is different from the sea. Did you want to comment on his last one?
Yeah, Nick is referring to special relativity and quantum mechanics. So subatomic timescales, you need to be working with quantum mechanics. We're working with observing light. When you get close to the speeds of light, then that's when time and space become relativistic. And at that point, you have to use relativistic mechanics as opposed to Newtonian mechanics. You have to use it at all times, right? The reality is, oh gosh, we're getting into a lot of mess here. Okay. There was Newtonian mechanics.
Yeah.
Then simplifying it. There was Newtonian mechanics, then there was a paradigm shift and we got relativistic mechanics. Then there was a paradigm shift and we got quantum mechanics, right? For the most part though, we use Newtonian mechanics for things that are at human scales. So when it comes to driving your car, or when it comes to, even a rocket launch, it's for the most part, it's Newtonian mechanics. But then when we go way out at the scale of galaxies, then we have to start using relativistic mechanics. When we go down to the scale of the Large Hadron Collider, we have to go to the scale of, we have to use quantum mechanics. But the reason I mentioned these three paradigms is because, and there's more, right? There's still more. There's more yet to come. So this isn't the truth, or this, right? None of this is the truth. But Newtonian is good enough for most purposes. Relativistic and quantum mechanics is needed for large time scales, high speeds, and large scales, high speeds, and small scales. And then we're going to reach another paradigm shift where we have to talk about consciousness. And I don't know when that's coming and what's going to be the insight, the flash of insight, Nick, because I do believe that it comes in a flash of insight, that some scientists will be in a position to say, I think I've figured out how to do this. But meanwhile, we've got a lot of string theorists working on it. We've got a lot of astrophysicists working on it. I mean, they're trying. They just haven't gotten it yet.
The reason why I'm not commenting is because I am trying to save this conversation for another live chat. So I'm keeping totally quiet on it. So thank you, Nick. Observing light is different from seeing the train heading towards you. And Kay Heyman, timeline is picking a date in the future and getting events that happen leading up to that date. Let me just get my head on it. Timeline is picking a date in the future and getting the events that happen leading up to that date. Yeah, got you. Totally agree. Well, we're going to expand on that as well, Kay. But love the comment. So what I'm going to do, and what I've been inspired to before we finish and get wrapped up, I'm going to ask Ava if she will create a code for Zoom, because when we finish this in 5 minutes time, we're going to open a Zoom room up for anybody who wants to extend this chat. Everybody's welcome. Ava will put it on, hopefully, if she can manage it. She'll bring it into this chat now while we're just wrapping up and finishing off with Shanti. So, any final thoughts, Shanti?
No, we covered a lot of ground.
Do final thoughts exist?
There are no final thoughts. It's all unfolding and unraveling. And but I think there is a final feeling, and the feeling is gratitude. I'm very grateful to be here and to have had this conversation.
I can't tell you and express how grateful I am that you've joined us, and the beauty of your capacity to share in such a gentle fashion and so many other areas is absolutely wonderful. So thank you so deeply. It's been amazing. And I know we've only just kind of kept it within the boundaries of time, as we say. Hopefully you'll join us again and we can expand on this even further. We would absolutely love to have another chat with you. We can discuss that. So please to everybody, thank you so much to Shanti. Thank you for your knowledge and the way you've conveyed it. Thanks to everybody who's joined us and to all your comments. Ava has put a Zoom meeting up. We're going to open that room. Anybody wants to jump on Zoom, you're more than welcome to. Might just have a chat for 10, 15, 20 minutes, I don't know, half an hour, whatever. We'll just jump on there. Please visit Shanti's website, which is, I'm going to let Shanti tell you. I do know it, but, oh, there you go. So how can people contact you, Shanti? Do you want them contacting you?
You can contact me on Facebook. You can contact me at Shanti at deepfieldhealing.com. You can go to my website at deepfieldhealing.com or at mysteries.deepfieldhealing.com.
Highly recommended, obviously, which is a ridiculous statement, but for some reason I said it. Thank you so much. We've got more coming up on Menorca Consciousness Group. Tomorrow night, we've brought a live chat forward tomorrow night, and Shanti knows this person. We've got the lovely Tony from Egypt, from Luxor, and the topic tomorrow, strange, we're getting some really good titles, guys, and I'm not picking any of these, which I absolutely love, which is, sorry, I just need to get it. I should have got it. Don't need to turn me back on yet. So tomorrow's title and live chat with Tony, it will begin at 6 p.m. UK, 7 o'clock European, riding the cosmic tidal waves. We was going to do it next weekend, but due to the way the energies are at the moment, we thought, they're in, let's talk about the waves at the minute. So that's tomorrow evening. We also, on Menorca Consciousness Group, have the wonderful Pauline Barnfather, who we deeply respect and appreciate, for holding weekly meditations every day at 5 o'clock through the week. Not Saturday and Sunday, bless her, she takes some time off. So 5 o'clock till 5:30. If you wish to come and join us and sit with Pauline, be guided by that, Pauline, they're beautiful. Later on in the week, on Thursday, we have a, now then, this might be, I've got to get this right, so I'm going to be cautious. For some reason, Spirit putting these chats on, we will have a chat with Judith Miller. Judith Miller is a medium, channel, etc. And we're going to open that space. So please join us on Thursday. And I believe the time will be, and I can find on my, forget it, it's on the post. We'll put the post up. I should imagine 6 or 7 o'clock UK time. That's it. Thank you so much. We're going to jump over to Zoom. Shanti, absolutely beautiful. I can't express it. One final thing, oh, sorry. I can't close this down without mentioning the magazine, the new magazine, Edify Your Soul, with Laurie McHugh Smith, sorry. Over in New York, she's created this wonderful magazine. The editions are already out, and the next one will be out on the 1st of April, I believe. So please check out Laurie McHugh Smith and Edify Your Soul magazine. Marie is oh, thank you. It's a special. Judith Miller. Judith Miller is special. Well, it will be a special. Everybody's special. Mainly special needs, Rhea. So that puts us all equal in an equal context. We're looking forward to it. Shanti, thank you. Any final thoughts? That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
you for a wonderful conference. This was very stimulating as next step.
Absolutely. Loved it to pieces. Really enjoyed it. And in the background, as always, thank you so much to Ava for setting all this up and inspiring it. So lots of love, everybody. Please protect your mind, protect your energy, and just accept that we know nothing. So that was a joke, by the way. Don't drop too far down. Thank you so much. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and we'll speak very soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.